Hey team, how are you? In today's episode, I talk about how if you fall off center, if you get double-minded off track, how to bring yourself back onto track. See you on the other side. Hey team, how are you? It's a beautiful day in paradise. And what I want to talk about today really is this idea about being double-minded, being weak-minded, being in doubt, and how we can basically reconfigure ourselves, regroup ourselves, reposition ourselves to be able to effectively handle that situation. And so the way to do it basically is to be able to step back. Now, when you aren't behind yourself, when you're not complete, and you're feeling or you're sensing you're either off track or you're gonna fall off track. Now, what does that mean? Let me try and explain what I've said before. Is I believe that we as the person you are operate in two different dimensions in the same space. So we have a higher dimension that is spiritual, it's ethereal, it's at a higher level. You can't touch and feel it, but it's connected to everything. It's what I call the spirit, right? So we have a higher dimension that we're connected to. That connection takes place at the level of thought. Okay, so it's ethereal, you can't touch and feel it. Now, with the other dimension that we operate in is the physical, it's matter, what we can touch and feel. So they work in conjunction, and in between is us, our identity, the thing that connects the two, what I call willpower, is in the middle, where if it transitions, it basically, transition means you align. When you align using willpower, then you're basically able to connect the two dimensions together. So that's when you're centered. And so what I'm trying to say is that I believe there are radials, right? So at the spiritual level, at the higher dimension, at the ethereal level, there are tracks that are in the ether. Basically, let's just call it the ether, or in the spirit. There are, in that dimension, there are tracks of certainty, that there are truths that exist. And just like with gravity, and Earth is rolling around the sun in a fixed pattern, also there are truths that are on tracks that are in fixed patterns or fixed pathways. And so your mind needs to get on track or connect to that track. So if you're feeling weak or in double mind, that means you're either off that track or you're not even on that track. And so what you have to do is you have to reposition yourself, realign yourself, get back onto track. And that happens at the thought level, at the ethereal level. And so you've got to use a thought to push, to leverage, to jostle you back onto track. And then when you're on track, you're like on form, powerful, you're living in truth, and you have presence, right? So how do you shift yourself at the higher dimension in the ethereal space? How do you shift yourself back onto a track that you can't visibly see, you don't even know if it exists? And I'm saying it doesn't exist in the physical world. It exists at the spiritual dimension level, but it does exist, and it will exist because when you leverage yourself back onto that track, you'll feel it. You'll know, you're on a certain track, it's solid, it's hard, you're right, okay? So how do you do that? Like I said, you move one thought and you use that thought to leverage, almost like a cleaver or something. You push it to leverage it and push it onto the track. So what is that thought? Well, the greatest thought that you can have when you're feeling weak-spirited, weak-minded, when you're in doubt, when you're double-minded and you need to get that centering, you need to get that certainty, you need to get back on track, then what you need to do is you need to reflect, get contextual awareness of your existence. And the way you do that is you reflect on death. That's crazy as it sounds, right? But you have to step back and know that you're not in control of your existence and you're not in control of your death, but death is guaranteed. And so if death is guaranteed, then in that situation, you can know that there is meaning to life and it's not that situation you're in. And so when you know death can happen at any time, at any moment, then you get yourself out of the way, meaning you don't worry about yourself and you try and search through a calling to a higher power to guide you, that you recognize the guaranteedness. Like, it's impossible to believe that death doesn't exist. There's two things that are guaranteed in life. One is that you exist, you're alive right now, you feel yourself, right? And then the second thing is that it's guaranteed is death. No other things or no other things can you guarantee apart from the fact that you exist and that you're going to die. And so when you reflect on the fact in your double-mindedness that that basically your the higher power has created you, and there's certainty in death, then you're not in control of that situation, you're not in control of your death. So then you seek guidance from the higher power to direct you in life. So when you're not certain, you're not in control of death, and you don't know when death is going to happen, but it's going to happen, you want to be in a state where you're aligned with what the higher power wants you to do. So when you're in doubt, when you're in weak spirit, when you're not motivated, when you're not on track, when you're double-minded, then you have to get centered. And the way you get centered is basically by getting a hard perspective on reality. And the hard perspective on reality is that you didn't create yourself, so something higher exists, and that higher power has created death. And so when you know that the higher power has created death in your situation as you are in right now, you call to that higher power and say that you're in control of not only my existence, but also the fact that I'm going to die. So you're in control of my death. So you guide me, you show me the way. And that's a thought working to a thought, or that's a thought that is being utilized to leverage you or get you back on track. Because once you recognize that the higher power exists and that you basically, what the word is, beseech, you call out to the higher power to guide you, recognizing you're not in control and that death is guaranteed, then in that second, in that thought, in that space, you've just shifted yourself out of the equation. You've zeroed yourself out, and now your weakness is out of the way, because now you're asking for guidance from a higher power. So you believe that there's something bigger and higher and more powerful than you, and so you've lost your identity, you've let go of your identity, and you've basically asked the higher power to utilize or give you strength, meaning utilize its strength to give you strength, right? And so now something outside yourself is basically helping you, supporting you, and leveraging you, and putting you back onto that radii, putting you back onto track in the spiritual space, in the ether, right? So that's basically what I would suggest as a way of what I would call repositioning yourself, refocusing yourself, aligning yourself, centering yourself. When you feel weak, then you have to get yourself out of the way. Your weakness is related to you thinking you're the center of the universe. And so if you move that out of the way, then now you can basically address the issue at hand, which is your connection to source. So when you're in the way, you're limiting that connection to source. And when you get yourself out of the way through contextual awareness, and contextual awareness is using thought to basically influence thought, then you get yourself out of the way. And influencing thought is called setting state. So you're using one thought to leverage your state of mind to get to a particular way of looking at and seeing the world. So you're setting in the mindset, you're setting a particular state of mind. I hope that was helpful. It's always been very helpful. And, I am always trying to, I'm always falling into weakness, into doubt, into double-mindedness. And sometimes it just happens, you don't consciously do it. Like I said, human beings, their default is to be off center. So when you wake up, your default is you're off center. And so one thing that you have to bear in mind is the second you pick up that phone when you wake up, instead of doing what you should be doing, which is saying, what do I want to do today, and enacting that, the second you pick up that phone, you have lost power. You've lost your power, because you're directed when you are behind yourself and doing what you should be doing, which is basically getting up and focusing on running your day, which in running your day, part of what constitutes the running of your day may be to check your phone, but your day isn't your phone, is my point. That's the point I'm trying to make. Your day isn't your phone. So when you wake up, don't grab the phone. In fact, you probably want to just switch it off and then go do the things that you need to do. And then within that program, whatever time you've allocated towards checking your phone, and that at that point, at that time, you do that. So for example, with me, being a Muslim, you do your dawn prayer. So what you would be advised not to do is, when you wake up, you go and check your phone and see what all the messages and stuff like that. What you want to do is you just want to wake up, maybe even put the phone away or switch it off, and then go to the restroom, do your stuff, and then go and do your prayers, and then set your day. And then within that, if whatever the program is for checking your phone, you do that. So this is where the dangers come in with modern day technology, that it's really getting into our thinking space and getting into our private space, and that not only that private space, into our sovereignty, into our dominion, that place where we need to be owning that space and controlling that space and using that space to guide and direct everything on the outside. And our dominion is basically under attack with not with social media, but with the phone, in the sense it's right next to us and we want to check what's on the phone. So it could be anything. It could be you wake up and you put the TV on. It's the same thing. Or you wake up and you do anything that is easy as opposed to what you should be doing. So life is tough. It's very tough. But I hope in some way, and it's tough because you have to control your thinking space, what I call, what I said was your dominion. I haven't used that word often, but I call it the thinking space. You have to own your thinking space. You have to basically be the center of your center. And we in the modern era, in today's age, are under attack from technology and distractions. in not owning that space. Now, in the earlier times, in the ancient times, people had that time to focus on themselves when they woke up, and waking up and getting centered and being in control and behind yourself, and then taking on the day. They were able to do that. We don't do that right now, and we need to be able to do that, because that's our superpower, basically. And if we don't guard that superpower, then the rest of the day is just like it's lost to us. We're not in control. It's in control of us. We're not leading. We're following. We're not getting ahead. We're basically chasing. All this kind of stuff is taking place. Team, thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate that. I hope I'm bringing some value to you, and I will talk to you later. Bye now. Question of the day, team. What I'd like to be able to ask you is, how do you center yourself? How, when you're weak-minded, do you bring yourself on track? How do you stay on track? Thank you. And the other thing I was going to say is, please do leave your comments below on that question, because by doing that, by sharing your opinions intelligently, intellectually, as simply as you want, but constructively, then we all get an opportunity to get insight on this point. And we are able to basically, I don't have all the answers. We might all have the answers together, and so we can collectively raise our consciousness through this channel by contributing. And if you do like and you feel this video, this vlog, this episode has had some sort of value to you, please feel free to share it with friends and family. Hopefully we can add value for them or to them as well. And if you feel you would like to subscribe, please do so. Thank you so much. Bye bye.